All right, so it's just a minute after 7. I'm going to go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Zoe Mills. I am the Adult Programming and Community Outreach Librarian at Tredyffrin Public Library. Thank you again so much for joining me tonight as we discuss the cloud. And before I get started, I have a quick announcement. All of us at the library have been proud and delighted to be able to serve the community in a multitude of ways throughout the pandemic. Virtual programs like this one, plus electronic materials, reference chat, curbside pickup, and more have kept the community inspired, engaged, and connected. But the pandemic has also caused a loss of revenue at our libraries and has increased many costs. Now it is likely that cuts to services and programs may come. If you can give any amount, we are very grateful for your support. You can click the link, you can click the link in the chat to donate tonight. And before I get started with our presentation about the cloud, I just want to invite everyone to utilize the chat and Q&A function throughout the presentation. I am happy to answer any questions or clear up anything that may come up along the way. Before we get started, I wanted to give a quick disclaimer. Remember, at the end of the day, you get to decide your method of computing. There is no right or wrong side to the debate of the cloud. Information surrounding the cloud is very overwhelming. Just know that the library is available to provide information and resources for however you decide to use your computer. My goal during this webinar is to inform you in an unbiased way about personal cloud services like Google Drive or iCloud. At the end of the day, only you can determine if cloud computing can be beneficial for you. I wanted to go over a few terms before I jump into explaining the cloud and how to kind of make use or use it to the best of what it offers. These words will be heard throughout the entire presentation. Backup is making a spare copy of data such as a file, folders, or whole hard drives. One reason why you might want to use a cloud is to back up your computer or any files that are important to you. If you have ever used a removable hard drive or a thumb drive, you have used or you have created a backup of a file. Cloud computing is on-demand availability of a computer system, specifically data storage without direct active management from the user. Your hard drive is a physical, tangible data storage device that stores and retrieves data. So if you have a laptop or a desktop computer, that device has a hard drive within the device itself. Hard drives can be so tiny now that they fit in little tiny laptops, but you can store files such as photos, documents, PDFs, even movies or music onto a physical hard drive. And I'll explain in a little bit the main difference between cloud storage and hard drive storage. The internet is a global network of computers and other electronic devices. Now we generally use Wi-Fi to access the internet, but you might be using an Ethernet cable at your home. Server is one of the most important terms to understand when cloud computing. And a server is a computer that provides data to other computers. It can be local, like a LAN network. And that if you work in an office, you may have a local network, or I'm sorry, a local area network that you can only access at work. And that would be a local server. Or it could be a wide area network or WAN, which would be considered a cloud or cloud storage, because it could be accessed more widely than you would be able to access a local area network. And then finally, I think one of the most important things to understand is a user agreement. Sometimes it's referred to as a user end agreement. And it's basically an agreement between the owner and the user of a program, for example, Google Drive, that defines the rights and responsibilities of both parties. Privacy policies and website terms and conditions are both examples of a user-end agreement. So, what is the cloud? I get this question very often when I am speaking about computer use at the library, or I'm working directly with patrons about just general computing. A lot of people have heard the term the cloud. It's used quite often now. It's kind of become ubiquitous, but it's never really explained. It seems like everyone kind of assumes everyone knows. But boiling it down to its bare bones, the cloud is basically storing and accessing data and programs over the internet instead of your computer's hard drive. So essentially, think of the cloud as the internet. The cloud is not your physical hard drive on your physical computer or smart device. It's called the cloud because it's kind of an abstract idea. You are storing your data on servers that, say, Google or Apple own, which you can access at any point, anytime, any day, on any device, as long as it is internet capable. So in order to make use of the cloud, you need to access your data over the internet. If you ever used internet-based emails like Yahoo Mail or Google Mail, or even streamed movies through Netflix, you have already made use of the cloud. So for example, let's think about Netflix. You log in through an account and you can stream Netflix on various devices like a laptop, your TV, or even your cell phone. By logging in, you are accessing Netflix's servers and using their product to stream movies that they have made available over the internet. You don't have those physical DVDs or physical movies with you, but you can still access and watch those movies. Another question is, where does the data go? So when using the cloud, you are using servers that are provided by a corporation. And on this right-hand picture here is just an example of what a server could look like. They have literal rooms for servers, just to create space to save all of the data. Essentially, by agreeing to a user-end agreement or paying for the cloud services, you are giving permission to the corporation to store your data with the understanding that you can access it at any time and from anywhere. Popular personal cloud services include, but is not limited to, Google Drive, Apple's iCloud, Microsoft's OneDrive, and Dropbox. If you pre-registered for this program, I sent out PDF copies of this presentation, and these are clickable. So if you're curious about the different cloud services and what is kind of entailed in an agreement, you can click through and read through each different corporation. And I'm happy to talk about any of them if you are interested. I have experience with the four major. If you have any questions about what it's like using those programs to compute using the cloud. So why should you use the cloud? There's three major reasons why, which include file storage, file sharing, and backing up your data. Starting with file storage, most newer computers have limited hard drive space, especially more affordable laptops like Chromebooks. The cloud serves as a place to store documents, photos, and even videos without taking even 1 GB up on your physical hard drive. Looks like we have someone interested in hearing about Google Drive. I'm happy to talk more about it towards the end, but I'm going to bookmark that in my head so I don't forget. File sharing is another great reason to use the cloud. The cloud makes it easy for you to share files with multiple people at once. For example, you can share photos of your child's wedding with the whole family via Flickr, iCloud Photos, or Google Photos with 2 clicks of a button. No more downloading, uploading, and attaching hundreds of photos to an email thread. And this also makes it easier for your recipients to look through the photos of a wedding. Before, we would receive emails with hundreds of attachments and you'd have to download and look at each attachment. But if you were to share using a photo sharing program or a photo sharing cloud program, they'll receive a link and then they'll click that link open and then be able to see the whole album in its entirety without having to download anything. Another major reason to use the cloud is backing up your data. Um, Again, you can use the cloud to back up and protect your files. So if your computer is ever lost, stolen, or damaged, you are still able to recover files from the cloud. Additionally, you can access your files from any internet-capable device like the computers at the library. So if you have a newer smartphone and say you decided to upgrade to the newest iPhone and the staff member at your cell phone provider store asks you to log into your iCloud or to your Apple ID, what that's doing is it's accessing everything that you have saved on the cloud and then dumping it into your new phone. So the cloud has made it so much easier to upgrade to a new phone or upgrade to a new computer. You just simply sign in and then all of your data is now added to your new device. So I put together a few questions that you can kind of ponder yourself to ask, why should I personally use the cloud? So you'll ask yourself the 5 following questions to see if utilizing the cloud could improve your day-to-day computing or make your files more accessible. We have that's a very good question in the chat. In file sharing, do all parties have to be subscribers? No, that's one of the really great things. They'll receive a link and it'll be just to that album that you're sending the link to. So they won't have to subscribe or log in to an account. Like, say you decide to share using Google Photos or the Apple Photos, they just click the link and they are automatically brought to the album. So they won't have to sign in or subscribe to anything. So the 5 questions I recommend kind of going over and thinking about in terms of should you utilize the cloud or if it could make or improve your day-to-day computing. So question 1 is, what type of files do you use on a daily basis? On a weekly basis? Question 2, where are you when you access these files? With what devices do you access the files? So if you commute a lot for work or you're just constantly working in different locations, now that it's getting a little bit safer for us to do so, if you like to work in cafes or you like to work at the library, would it be easier for you to access your files over the cloud so you don't have to bring your personal laptop? Question 3, can you think of any files you'd like to sync across multiple devices? So if you work on different computers or different devices, so say you have a desktop computer upstairs in your office and then downstairs you use your iPad to surf the internet, you can sync all of your files using the cloud. So if you are working on a project upstairs on your desktop and then hop downstairs for a cup of tea and you're playing around on your iPad, you can also access that file you were working on. So it can make it easier for you to kind of hop between different devices, but still be able to work on that same project. Question number 4, of these files, could you use free services like Google Drive, iCloud, or Dropbox to store them? So cloud services like Google Drive are actually very easy to use and are free up to a certain point. I'd like to add, with Google Drive, you get 15 gigabytes free of storage, which for the kind of average computer user is a lot of space. iCloud is very similar. You only get a certain amount. I'm not sure what the iCloud limit is. I know it's smaller than 15 gigabytes. And Dropbox also has a free version. So these services are out here for you to use for free. And it just makes a lot of things a lot more easier. And the final question, think of a few situations when you might need to collaborate on a file with others. Would the cloud make the collaboration more accessible and efficient? So, the collaboration opportunities provided by the cloud have definitely been helpful during during the pandemic and during COVID. I know the library has definitely used collaborative features on different cloud products to work together. Even though we're all working from home and we're all kind of separated, we can still work on the same document together and still feel connected. We have a question about the syncing. Isn't it automatic when you store files on one computer that you would be able to access it on another without having to sync it? In terms of, so if you are saving to your hard drive instead of saving to the cloud, you can only access it on the hard drive that it exists on. So, say you're working on a letter, like you're writing a letter to someone, and you are writing it on your desktop and you save it to your desktop hard drive. You won't be able to access it on any other device, but that's where the cloud steps in. So if you were to save that to the cloud, you can then access that letter on any other device. So here are some pros for using the cloud. I always like to kind of give you a list of pros and cons, at least realistic pros and cons, so that you know kind of a little bit of both ends of what the cloud can offer and what hiccups you might run into along the way. But my first pro is cost. The cloud eliminates the cost of having to buy hardware and software to store your data. Popular cloud programs like Google Drive are completely free for you to use. Looks like we have a question about security issues with the cloud, and I will go over that shortly. I believe that's the next topic that I'll be discussing. So I will answer that question momentarily. The next pro is mobility. Your data is available 24/7, 365 days a year across any internet-capable device, laptops, tablets, smartphones, etc. Teamwork. Most cloud programs allow for simple collaboration and projects. Team members can simultaneously work on a document or project together from different locations at different times. As I mentioned before, this option, the teamwork or collaborative option, has become ubiquitous in the time of COVID. A lot of different workplaces have used this feature. And I think it's a wonderful feature. It kind of came into the scene when I was in college, and it made group projects so much easier. We didn't have to meet every Friday at the library. We can meet virtually and work on our different portions of the project, but at the same time and on the same document. You don't have to worry about updates. So the cloud program automatically updates since it exists solely online, and it is the owner of that program. So like Google for Google Drive, Apple for iCloud, it's on them to update the cloud program. And then finally, sustainability. Availability and mobility prevents excessive printing of documents and photos. I know I have stopped printing as frequently as I did in school. Usually now I just bring my laptop everywhere, especially like at meetings, and I can access meeting notes, or I can make notes myself without having to worry about printing out any extra papers that don't need to be printed. Here are some cons for using the cloud. Outages is a big concern. Potential crashes on either end, your internet crashes or their servers are interrupted, can cause difficulty to access your data. As a Google Drive user, I have never experienced an interruption on Google's end in terms of, their servers are interrupted and I can't access my data. The only time that I've experienced an outage is just when I don't have Wi-Fi. My Wi-Fi is down or I moved and I don't have Wi-Fi up yet. It is internet dependent. You need to have reliable access to the internet in order to use the cloud to its full potential. If you don't have a strong internet connection or you don't have Wi-Fi at home, you won't be able to use the cloud. And then finally, trust. And this kind of leads us into the question of security issues with the cloud. You have to trust that your provider's data centers are compliant and secured both physically and online. So let's talk about the question of security. Cloud security provides protection like physical computing systems, like your laptop or your phone. There is always a chance that your data can be stolen, leaked, wiped, or lost, just the same with any physical system like your laptop itself or cell phone. All companies that provide cloud services are held to strict standards, which in turn means that they have strict measures in place to safeguard your privacy and data. But with that being said, when computing using the cloud, remember that you are entrusting your data to outside servers through companies like Apple or Google. Therefore, as a user, you should do your due diligence by researching companies that offer personal cloud services. Be sure to read completely and research on their user end agreements. Find out what is included or not included or guaranteed in the services provided. And I always recommend reading through and combing through the privacy policy and security policy with fine detail. You want to understand what the company is doing and the steps that they're taking to safeguard your privacy. That's the biggest concern. And then also looking into their data encryption practices. Data encryption just means that if you were to upload data onto a cloud service, they encrypt it on their end, so they can't actually access the data. They can't read through your files, they can't see your photos, just because it's encrypted and protected. So that's basically the cloud in a nutshell. I threw a lot of information out at you, so feel free to ask any questions in the chat or the Q&A. I could talk a little bit about Google Drive. So if you have a Gmail account already, like a Gmail account, you already have Google Drive and it's already accessible for you. Google Drive is a really great alternative for just basic computing. They have Google Docs, Google Sheets, and even Google Slides that are basically um, a replicate of the Microsoft Office programs like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And the Google Sheets, Google Docs work very similarly to the Word document or Word program and Excel program. As I mentioned, with Google Drive, you get 15 gigabytes free. And then once you surpass that 15 gigabytes, you have to start paying. But like I mentioned, it's really hard to fill those 15 gigabytes right away. I used Google Drive throughout my master's program. I did a lot of reading and I did a lot of writing, and I still did not fill the 15 gigabytes. There is Google Photos, which is a really great service I like to kind of promote or tell people about because it's completely free, unlimited storage for photos and videos. It's such a great option if you take a lot of photos on your cell phone. You can have your photos be automatically uploaded to your Google Photo account so that your photos are not taking up space on your cell phone. And like I said, Google Photos is completely free, unlimited storage. It does not count against your 15 gigabytes. Let me see if I can find. Um, Yes, so we have someone in the chat asking even if you use Apple devices. So yes, I am an Apple user. I have an iPhone and a Mac, and I still use Google Drive as my main cloud computing program. You would just have to upload the app on your phone. So Google Drive, Google Photos, Google Docs, Google Sheets, etc. All of their programs are offered as apps that you just download, and then you would access by logging into your account. If you were working on your computer and you wanted to start using Google Drive, you would just go to drive.google.com, sign into your Gmail account, and that's where you can access all of your cloud or all of the files that you have saved to the cloud, regardless of the type of computer you are using. The only difference between, let me go back to that one slide, is the only one that you have to worry about specific devices for is Apple's iCloud and Microsoft's OneDrive. So they're basically versions of the cloud for only Apple computers or iPhones, and then Microsoft OneDrive is only for Microsoft computers. But Google Drive and Dropbox can be accessed by any type of computer. It does not matter what brand you are using. I have an interesting question here. Friends have shared a Google Drive that was shared with me, but when I go in and click the file that is being shared, no files come up. Am I doing something wrong, or does the user who shared the file have to do something else to let me in? That's an interesting question. And I think it's a little difficult to answer as it's very specific to your experience, and I don't know exactly what you're seeing. But with Google Drive, another great thing about Google Drive is if you were to share folders or files, you can actually limit the access to whom or with whom you are sharing. So if you only ever want people just read the document or have the opportunity to print it out, you can limit it. It'll just be view only. Um, or if you are collaborating with coworkers or friends or family members, you can allow them to edit. And I think those are the only two options for Google Drive. But it's really great if you, um, you know, put together a project and you only want people to read it, you have that level of privacy and security. So whenever I upload this presentation to YouTube, I always provide a link to the PDF file of the handouts, and I do that through the cloud. So what I do is I upload the PDF file that you all received this morning to my Google Drive, and then I create a link that I then share, and it's only for people to be able to read the document. They can't edit it. So there's a lot of different, I guess, reasons or ways that you can use that share function. But in terms of the question, I would say um, make sure with them that you have the permission to view or edit the shared file just to make sure that it was shared correctly. Before I answer the next question, I just want to let you know that I do offer one-on-one tech sessions. So if you are kind of getting started with the cloud and you run into hiccups like that one where you are trying to access a shared file and it's not working, I am available to meet with you over Zoom or over the phone to kind of help you figure out what's going on and provide tech assistance. And you can schedule a one-on-one session by clicking this link. If not, you can always shoot me an email and I can find a time that works best for both of us. I have another question. I asked a question earlier in the week about my girlfriend's inability to print photos because she was told they were stored in the cloud and the photo center. You should still be able to print photos regardless of where they exist. It's not always going to be clear cut like it usually is when you're printing from your computer's hard drive or you're accessing photos that live on your hard drive. Each, I guess, program has a different way. And it can be a little bit tricky trying to find it, but I do know with Google Photos, you should be able to print, even though they exist on the cloud. And they added, Google Photos will be instituting a charge this spring for storage of high quality photos. I got an email from them recently indicating that. Yes, so when I say that Google Photos is free, unlimited, it's usually Not low quality, it's kind of just like the quality, like a standard quality of photos, and videos are lower quality for free. So if you want really high quality photos, say you're a photographer and you want to maintain that high quality, that's when you would have to start paying after you reach a certain amount of storage. But if it's just, pictures that you take on vacation that you just want to look at when you feel nostalgic, the lower quality photos are free, unlimited on Google Photos. And then jumping back to that question of how do you print photos when they're stored on the cloud? Even though things are stored on the cloud, you can still download from the cloud. So if you have Google Photos that you'd rather print professionally, like you'd rather take it to Walgreens and have it printed on picture paper, the glossy paper, you can download pictures from the cloud or you can upload. It goes both ways. Just think of the cloud as your hard drive, it's just not with you physically. You are paying or you're agreeing with Google or Apple to store those photos with the idea that you can access it at any point and any time and do with that data whatever you want to. So if it's just downloading it and taking it to a printing shop, you can certainly do that as well. Do we have any other questions or comments about the cloud? Oh, looks like we have a question coming. While you type in your questions, I'm just going to quickly go over this slide here. I wanted to provide contact information for myself as well as for the libraries. So Tredyffrin Public Library and Paoli Library, our phone numbers and email and website are listed here if you're interested. If you have a question about this webinar or any webinars that I have done in the past or I will do in the future, you can always email me or give me a call. I do have limited access to my phone, so there'll be a little delay in responding. I prefer email communication at this point. And again, if you want more assistance, more one-on-one assistance, you can schedule a tech session by following this link. And if those days don't work for you, you can always email me and I can figure out a time that works best for both of us. I have a question here. Can anyone see your work on the cloud and get access to it, or is it password protected? So no one can access your work out of the blue. The only way that someone could access your work on the cloud is if you have given them permission and shared it with them. Most of the data that you store on, say, like Google Drive or iCloud is encrypted. So that means that, a stranger on the internet cannot access what you have saved to the cloud, and only you, the account holder, can access it. So in a way, it is password protected. So if you decided to sign up with Google Drive, you would have to sign into your Google account, which is basically your Gmail, every time you want to use it. So it is essentially password protected. It's protected by your account. And the only way that anyone could ever access your work on the cloud is if you have given them the link or have shared with them your data on the cloud. And then I have a question, is this session being recorded or made available to watch again? Yes. So the recording of this presentation will be uploaded to YouTube within 48 hours after the conclusion of the webinar. I can put a link in the chat for our YouTube channel. Let me just pull it up. So the link in the chat now is the link to the library's YouTube channel, and we have actually quite a few videos on here. All of my virtual adult programming, much like this one, exists now on YouTube for you to rewatch or go back to, or even share it with family or friends if you thought it was a good program and gave a lot of helpful information. We have someone in the Q&A asking what determines what goes to the cloud from an iPad. So you would actually have to go through your settings on your iPad. Um, most Apple devices are automatically set to back up on the cloud, which can be kind of a pain. The iCloud gets filled or your cloud gets filled very quickly when you're using iCloud. So you'll probably get a lot of emails or messages saying that you need to upgrade your cloud storage space. That's not always the case. You can always go through and see what is being saved to the cloud so that you can kind of delete things you no longer need and free up some space. But if you go to your settings on your iPad and then tap on your Apple ID and then tap on iCloud, you can see what apps are using iCloud. So when it says that it is being used or the app is using iCloud, that means that whenever a change has happened, like say you receive a text message or you take a photo or save a photo or receive an email, and that is using the iCloud, all of that is being backed up onto the cloud. And you can change what apps are saving to the cloud and which apps are not. And it can also give you a storage overview. So it's like a little graph where you can see, like I'm looking at mine right now on my phone, and a majority of my iCloud storage is photos. I take a lot of pictures on my phone, and I have the photos being backed up on my iCloud as well. So you can kind of play around with your settings. If you don't want anything being backed up from the cloud, you can disable all of it, or you can just enable ones that you are mostly concerned for. You're very welcome. I'm happy that you were able to attend, and I hope um, everyone got something out of it. Again, like I said, I threw a lot at you. Um, and it's a lot, especially if you haven't dabbled in the cloud universe. A lot of it can be very overwhelming, and making the decision on which cloud program you decide, or if you even decide to use the cloud, it can be overwhelming. So please ask any questions that you have. And at the end of the session, if you get a question, say like in the middle of the night, or you're thinking about it more and you want to talk more about different resources, you can always give me an email, and I'm happy to help in any way that I can.